When you picture ancient Egypt, you picture pharaohs, pyramids, and gold. But somebody had to build all of it. This is one ordinary day, 3,000 years ago, through the eyes of the man who carved eternity for a living, and then went home to a mud-brick house smaller than the tomb he was digging. Meet Bak. He isn't a priest or a prince, he's a craftsman. Bak builds and paints the secret tombs of the pharaohs, which makes him something rare in Egypt, a skilled working man who can actually read and write. He's not rich, but he is very, very good at his job. Bak lives in a company town, maybe the first one in history. It's a walled village in the desert called the Place of Truth, built for one purpose, to house the crew that digs the royal tombs. Nothing grows here. It sits in the sand on purpose, far from the river, so the tomb's locations stay secret. Because there's no farmland and barely any water, everything Bak's family needs is carried in from outside: grain, fish, vegetables, even the water, hauled by donkey and dumped in jars at the gate. The whole village survives on deliveries from the state. Miss a delivery and there's a problem. Hold that thought. Dawn, Bak gets up early because the smart money beats the desert sun. His house has no windows to speak of, just high slots to let heat out, so mornings inside are cool and dim. He sleeps on a raised mud-brick platform because the floor belongs to the scorpions. Breakfast is bread and beer, and that's not a joke or a party. Egyptian beer was thick, soupy, barely alcoholic, and packed with calories. It was basically liquid bread, safer than the local water, and everyone drank it all day, including the kids. Bak has some now to fuel the climb ahead. Bak's commute is a killer. The Valley of the Kings sits on the far side of a steep desert ridge, so every workday begins with a long uphill hike on a stone path, no shade, no water until he gets there. At the top of the pass sits a little cluster of stone huts where the crew rests and eats. Bak belongs to a gang, and the gang is split down the middle, the right side and the left side, each working one wall of the tomb. 2 foremen run the crews and a scribe runs the paperwork. That scribe is about to become the reason we know absolutely everything about Bak's life. Down inside the rock, the work is delicate and enormous at once. One team cuts the corridors deeper with copper chisels and wooden mallets. Behind them, plasterers smooth the walls, and artists like Bak lay out the sacred texts and gods in crisp painted color. The map the dead king will need to survive the afterlife. There's no sunlight this deep, so the tombs were lit by lamps, simple wicks in oil. And here's a genuinely clever detail. They added salt to the oil to cut the smoke so the crews wouldn't choke and the ceilings wouldn't blacken. The scribe even counted out the wicks each day to track the hours. Bak's week isn't 7 days, it's 10. He works 8 of them and gets 2 off, and on work nights he often sleeps up in those hilltop huts rather than hiking home. It sounds brutal, but between festivals, holy days, and, well, personal days, the crew took a lot of time off. We know about those personal days because the scribe wrote down exactly why each man missed work, and those notes survived. Real reasons on real records include brewing beer, his wife was having her period, wrapping his dead brother, stung by a scorpion, and the immortal classic, hungover. At midday, the crew climbs back up to the huts to escape the worst heat and eat. Lunch is more bread, dried fish, onions, and of course, more beer. Up here the men trade gossip, argue, and lend each other grain, all of it dutifully recorded by that endlessly scribbling scribe. Now payday. Bak has never held a coin in his life because coins don't exist here yet. He's paid in food, fixed monthly rations of emmer wheat and barley, plus fish, vegetables, oil, and firewood. Grain is the salary, the currency, and the beer supply all at once, which means the whole village lives or dies on that delivery. And one year the grain didn't come. In the 29th year of Rameses III, the rations ran late, and Bak's hungry crew did something no workers had ever recorded doing before. They downed tools, marched off the job, and staged a sit-in at the temples until they were fed. It's the first labor strike in written history, pulled off by tomb builders. What made these men so unusual wasn't just the strike, it was the pen. In a country where almost nobody could read, a striking number of these workmen could. So they wrote constantly on cheap flakes of limestone, shopping lists, IOU complaints, laundry counts, dirty jokes, and love poems. Their trash heap became history's greatest diary. Building the king's tomb was the day job. The side hustle was building each other's. In their off hours, the same skilled crews quietly cut and painted beautiful private tombs for the villagers, using, let's be honest, some royal tools and royal materials that happened to walk home in a kilt. Looming over the whole valley is a natural pyramid-shaped peak, and Bak believes a goddess lives in it, Merit Sager, she who loves silence. She's a cobra and she watches. Lie, steal, or swear a false oath in her valley, and the workmen believed she'd strike you blind or fill your body with venom. Out here, she was the real police. As the sun drops, Bak hikes back over the pass toward the village, chisel on his hip, legs aching. The desert cools fast. Below him, thin lines of cooking smoke rise from 100 mud brick houses. Somebody down there has been working just as hard as he has. That somebody is his wife, and her day has been relentless. Egyptian women ran the household economy, and the biggest chore was food. She spent hours grinding grain into flour on a stone, baking bread, weaving linen, minding the kids, and brewing the very beer Bak drinks by the jug. The gritty flour, by the way, is quietly wrecking everyone's teeth. The house itself is narrow and deep, a few rooms in a row. The front room holds a little household shrine and, oddly, a raised bed-shaped platform linked to childbirth and the ancestors. Behind it, a main room with a low divan, then a kitchen open to the sky, and a cool cellar dug below for storage. No bathroom, obviously. Dinner is the day's real meal. Bread and beer, of course, but now with fish fresh from the Nile, onions, garlic, cucumbers, beans, and figs or dates if it's a good week. Meat is a rare treat, a festival thing. It's simple food, but there's a lot of it, and Bak eats like a man who climbed a mountain twice today. Because he did. When someone gets sick, and with those teeth, someone always does, Egypt's medicine is a strange, brilliant mix. There are real doctors with real remedies written on papyrus, honey on wounds, willow for pain. But there are also spells, amulets, and a dream book to read the future. Bak hedges his bets and uses all of it. There's no courthouse in the village, so when two neighbors feud over a donkey, a debt, a stolen tool, they take it to the oracle. On festival days, the priests carry a statue of the deified old king Amenhotep I through the streets, and the people ask it yes or no questions. A tilt forward means yes. Justice, delivered by a god on a pole. For fun, Bak plays Senate, a board game so old the pharaohs were buried with it. On the surface, it's a race of pieces across 30 squares. But by Bak's day, it had picked up a spookier meaning. The board was the journey of the soul through the underworld, and winning was a rehearsal for beating death itself. Even game night was about the afterlife. And that's the thing to understand about Bak. He spends his days building a perfect eternity for the king and his knights, and his side hustle savings building a smaller one for himself. To an Egyptian, this life was short and the next one was forever. A good death in a good tomb, remembered by name, was the entire point of a good life. So Bak snuffs the lamp and lies down on his platform, above the scorpions under a goddess-shaped mountain, in a company town that fed him in beer and grain to build tombs for gods. He'll do it again in the morning. And because his village couldn't stop writing things down, 3,000 years later, we still know his name. Bak built for the dead. Next time, we cross the sea and go to work with the living machine that built an empire, the discipline, the marching, the pay, and the brutal daily grind of the most famous soldier in history. A day in the life of a Roman legionary. Follow the story.